and let us all do we can to build a better future.
All right. It's funny seeing the establishment fight each other, but it's also important to note about what's going to be happening during this Democratic primary. Now, I've made it very clear how I stand in this election cycle. I'm going to watch the DNC and RNC tear each other apart. And also, hey, let's laugh at corporate media as they try to lie their way through this. Okay. Once again, giving misinformation to the American people. But what I find interesting about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign, and there's a lot of things I disagree with him, things I do disagree with him about. But in comparison to Bernie Sanders, it is frightening the DNC more than whatever Bernie Sanders was able to accomplish in 2016 and in 2020. Now, I say this because, again, look, Bernie Sanders did have a large political movement, and he was able to get millions of people to support him. But unlike Bernie, RFK Jr. is having a better chance in actually exposing the establishment for who they are. Now, Bernie Sanders, being the cuck that he was, immediately endorsed Joe Biden. So that's it. Bernie, you made yourself irrelevant. Way to support your good friend Joe Biden, who was on the wrong side of history for many things, as you were part of the civil rights movement, but you cucked out and supported somebody who was against the civil rights movement. But hey, Bernie, it is what it is, and people will always look back at this point in time and realize that you didn't believe in a goddamn thing that you said. Now, Robert Kennedy, however, has shown that he can build his own kind of movement and reach across the aisle, across everyone in the political spectrum. He's able to get Republican voters, independents, and yes, even Democratic voters. And again, the DNC has made it very clear. They're not going to have any debates. They're not going to have any conversations whatsoever. And as Joe Biden is revealing himself to be more senile, even corporate media can't hide the fact that voters, especially in the Democratic primary, want something different. Now, again, to anyone that's going to be participating in the Democratic primary, know this, your votes don't matter. They already picked who their candidate's going to be behind closed doors. The establishment doesn't want RFK Jr. for many, many reasons. And not to mention, they have a thing called the superdelegates. So whoever the Republican nominee is going to be, they're going to be more democratically elected than anyone in the Democratic primary. Case in point, I want to bring up this video from Case Study QB. Please be sure to follow him on Twitter. He is wrongly being censored. Now, this individual thinks that RFK Jr. is going to be the nominee.
To see, but he's not going to be the candidate.
You don't think Joe Biden's going to be the candidate?
No, I don't.
I don't think so either. And for a year, I've been saying there's not a shot in hell that Joe Biden runs, just from watching him every day.
Well, the word salad, right? I mean,
Now, to be very clear, this is from Fox News, and they have their own political bias and spectrum. We all know this, as does CNN and MSNBC. But in good conscience, even if you're the most diehard sycophant of the vote blue no matter who crowd, there's no denying that Joe Biden has something wrong with him. I've seen 4 of my family members deal with Alzheimer's and dementia. It's easy to see the signs. You know what they look like, how they carry themselves. It's a difficult thing to see. Our president exhibits those signs to me that there's something wrong with him upstairs. I've seen it before. And I'm pretty sure some of you have seen it before too.
He can't express himself in a coherent manner, right?
So but the Democrats are not allowing any debate. So something's got to give.
It's starting to give already. Robert Kennedy Jr. is now a credible candidate. He could win in New Hampshire. He could win in Iowa. He's going to play the role that Gene McCarthy did back in 1968, an obscure Minnesota senator, ran against an incumbent President Lyndon Johnson, did well in the New Hampshire primary, and knocked him out of the race. I don't think Biden's going to let it go to that. He'll be out before that happens. But Robert Kennedy's the agent of those who want to have a change at the top of the ticket.
You think it's going to be Robert Kennedy?
No, I don't think he'll be the nominee, but I think he'll be the battering ram that helps knock Joe Biden out of the race.
So who's the nominee?
Well, you have a governor in California.
Oh, God, Gavin Newsom. To my viewing audience in California, I am so sorry what's happening to your state. Gavin Newsom really put it up the wazoo. People of America, even the most diehard vote blue no matter who people, Do you really want that guy running the show here? I mean, look at California. It ain't good.
Who's so drooling for the job, they have to give him bibs now. He's ready. He's ready to run, and they're probably looking at the field now. They want to do in 2024 what they did in 2020 when they handpicked Joe Biden, who was finishing 4th or 5th in those primaries, an early contest. They in fact shoehorned him in. They hope to do it with somebody else, whether it's with Gavin Newsom or somebody else. It won't be Joe Biden.
That's what they did with Hillary, too, in 2016. Don't forget that.
Yes.
They shoehorned her in, and they blew off Bernie Sanders.
Well, and they shooed her into the Senate, if you recall, right?
Oh, yeah, that's
when
right.
Moynihan retired, they just handed it off to Ms. Clinton.
Yes, handing it off. And that's not really a good thing, especially for Democrats. Vote blue no matter who crowd. Listen, I'm going to level with you. When you shoehorned in Hillary Clinton, people didn't like it. Now, of course, Bernie Sanders was the cuck. And yes, diehard Bernie Sanders supporters, your boy Bernie Sanders was a cuck. He let them screw him over. All right. The DNC is going to rig the primary. Now, I do wish all the best to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I mean, at this point, I'm not even going to acknowledge Marianne Williamson's campaign. I mean, she's out of steam. It's over for her. It's over for Marianne, all right? It's really now a fight between RFK Jr. and Biden. And the establishment doesn't want RFK Jr. because he does not fit all the check marks. In some areas, he does. Let's be clear here. But in other areas, he don't. So they're going to try and throw and maintain Joe Biden. And if it's not going to be Joe Biden, they're going to throw in Kamala. And Kamala is an epic failure. And a vote for Biden is a vote for Kamala. They might try Bet on My Stork, Beto O'Rourke, Pete Buttigieg, the Skaven incarnate. They might even try and throw in Gavin Newsom or whoever else. But voters want something different. And all those people I named, Kamala, Pete, Beto, Gavin, they're irrelevant. And already the DNC is screwing over 2 key states. And as I covered in a previous show, Iowa and New Hampshire are still going to continue on with their primaries, but the DNC has stated that they will not acknowledge the delegates from those 2 states. So if you're a Democratic voter, I would be furious. Here, let's play this video. Again, shout out to Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on Twitter.
The DNC, Democrats, Joe Biden has said that he's not going to campaign there, and so he won't see that as legit. I mean, would you effectively...
Look, New Hampshire's a place where it doesn't matter if you have name ID or money. You come, you earn it on the campaign trail.
Wouldn't it kind of be a sham primary?
No, it just means they wouldn't sit our delegates. Doesn't matter. The value you get. Look, RFK Jr., right, who's a pretty interesting character to say the least. I've sat with him. He seems like a nice guy. He's already polling at 25-30% in certain polls in New Hampshire, and he's barely even started. So I think a lot of folks are realizing, wait a minute, I can use New Hampshire as a launching ground to challenge a sitting Democrat president that most Democrats don't think should run for a second term anyway. So I just think it's an open door. We're going to have ours first, whether they like it or not. Don't even know if the South Carolina primary is going to happen. They didn't hold one for Trump when he was an incumbent. Probably won't hold one for Biden. So there's just going to be a lot of political momentum behind whoever wants to challenge the current president through New Hampshire.
Now, it gets even better because, look, Joe Biden has been incapable of making a coherent statement. We're seeing that he exhibits signs of dementia. This is downright pathetic that we're seeing a sitting president go through this. It's elder abuse, in my opinion, but it is what it is. Now, recently, and I covered this on yesterday's show, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. gave a major foreign policy speech. Biden is already rating unfavorably 56% amongst voters. Marianne Williamson's campaign, what remains of it, is hemorrhaging people. She already, as I mentioned before in the previous show, lost her second campaign manager. Let's pull up this video again. Shout out to Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on Twitter.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. taking his presidential campaign to New Hampshire for his first major foreign policy speech last night. He is polling about 20% against President Biden. Correspondent Mark Meredith reporting live on this from Washington. Hi, Mark.
Martha, good to see you. President Biden, he just wrapped up some fundraisers out west, and the money may come in handy because as you've been talking about, polling shows the president remains vulnerable next year. CNN's got a new survey out showing 56% of Americans have an unfavorable opinion of the president. Those numbers are up sharply from when he came into office. So there is one person hoping to capitalize on those feelings. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running for the Democratic nomination. As you mentioned, he was in New Hampshire last night giving his thoughts on U.S. foreign policy. He told the crowd nuclear tensions are at an extreme and dangerous level. He also says if elected, he'd work to curb both military and diplomatic tensions while forever changing how the U.S. exercises its power.
Every empire ends itself through the expansion of the military, overexpansion of its military abroad.
Now, again, that's very true. Again, if you look at the history of the Roman Empire, the Mongol Empire, hell, all the empires that have come before us, their rise and fall is always the same. Ongoing, continuous war, political corruption, and so much more. And the United States right now is doing a click, copy, paste version of that.
I therefore call on our present leadership to adopt President Kennedy's maxims and to start de-escalating right now.
The New York Times summing up where his campaign stands earlier this week, saying his early strength highlights Biden's weaknesses Republicans are eager to exploit. Kennedy also remains far ahead of the other Democrat in this race, Marianne Williamson. Her campaign has had a rocky rollout, and now Politico reports she's lost her second campaign manager just this cycle. They went on to...
She's done. Marianne Williamson is done. This isn't open for a conversation. She is done. She is gone. It is over for Marianne. In fact, let's have democracy in the chat. Type 1 if you think Marianne Williamson is going to immediately endorse Joe Biden. A type 2 of like, oh no, she's an independent thinker, kid. She'll do her own thing. I'm going for number 1. She's going to support Joe Biden.
Say that her campaign has raised less than $1 million in the first quarter of this year and is not running any broadcast advertising. There is also another candidate out there that many people pundits thought would pose a true challenge to the president, California Governor Gavin Newsom. He told Fox he's not planning to run. And Martha, he was even out with the president for a photo op earlier this week in California.
Again, this is a sign that, again, the DNC is starting to panic. Now, they know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is able to build some kind of momentum behind his campaign. He has support from, yes, let's be very clear here, people from Silicon Valley. But he's also got support amongst regular voters across the political spectrum. Already polling at 20%, and those numbers are rising up. Voters see that he's able to give an alternative message in the primary. Biden, however, has not. Biden's very good at getting the regular people, especially the establishment, to support him because he's a very good puppet. He's very controllable, biddable at this point. But that's not inspiring voters this time around. So vote blue no matter who. You were able to bully around Bernie Sanders and his supporters, but you're going to have a hell of a time trying to pull that off with Robert F. Kennedy's supporters. Now, I do hope that RFK Jr. is able to follow through and, dare I say it, go one step further, not support Joe Biden if Biden becomes the nominee. And I say this because the DNC is already rigging the primary to favor Biden at every point in time. And if it's not going to be Biden, it's going to be some other establishment hack fraud. Now, I want to pull up this other video here too as well. And it's asking if there's a potential for RFK Jr. to unite the left and the right. I think that's possible. I think it's possible. But there's also other commentary as well. So let's pull this up for everybody to see.
I'm curious what you think about the RFK factor, both on the Democrat side and potentially among some Republican voters, because as he said last night, he says both parties have lost their way. My campaign is about bringing the two groups together, left and right, in a populist movement. And some of what he says does appeal to people from your party.
I think what it really signals is the weakness of Joe Biden, an incumbent president. Robert Kennedy Jr. hasn't held office for a long time, and for him to be polling in the 20%, to have no support among the Democrat leadership, and to be mounting this big of a challenge against an incumbent president shows how weak Joe Biden really is.
Chris Christie was here yesterday, and he said that he expects that there will be a third-party candidate if President Trump is the nominee. And a lot
It's all right, Dr. Cornel West, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. I mean, sorry, Chris Christie.
Let's talk about this today, about the No Labels group, about potentially.
And let me clear this about the No Labels group. To anybody that's going to talk about them, the No Labels group is nothing but, again, people from the DNC and RNC. They're centrist people, neoliberals through and through. All these people saying, oh, Senator Sinema and Joe Manchin are mavericks because they know how to talk to everyone. No, they're corporatists, just like everyone in the Republican Party, just like everyone in the goddamn Democratic Party. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing about the No Labels Party, No Labels movement. You know what No Labels says to me? Uninspiring and irrelevant. I mean, for frick's sake, you got Joe Manchin and Sinema associated with it and a couple other jagoffs. That's not a third-party movement.
Joe Manchin. So how real is this?
I mean, hell, No Labels. Chris Christie probably saw and said, I could probably still eat that. All right. That was mean. That was mean. I'm sorry. I should not have done that. I should not have said that. That was mean.
Situation of having a third party or a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. who kind of takes pieces away from both sides?
Well, I think a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or a Joe Manchin takes away from the Democrats. I mean, they've absolutely adopted Democrat policies. Joe Manchin supported the Inflation Reduction Act, which is essentially the Green New Deal, and I just think that would be something that would hurt the Democrat Party. But I do think they are looking at mounting a third party challenge, the No Labels group.
So will you welcome that?
I'm not welcoming anything.
She's not welcoming anything because she knows where her bread and butter is at. I mean, come on. It's either you're Democrat or Republican in Washington, D.C. Don't you dare think for yourself or they'll get you.
I'm supporting the Republican nominee against Joe Biden. That's what we need to make sure happens, and that we coalesce all the Republicans around that candidate, and we're going to need independents to win the White House as well.
All right. So, I mean, it's just interesting because you've got 70% saying they don't want Biden to run, 60% saying they don't want Trump to run. So, you know, if you get some of these other.
And you know what that spells out to people? Voters want something different. Now, Donald Trump, in comparison to Biden, he's got his supporters. But overall voters, especially the 50% that identify themselves as independent, they want something different, which is why I embrace Dr. Cornel West run for Green Party. This is why I embrace the Libertarians for running as well, but also anybody else that's running as independent or non-affiliate, because we do need another option. And I wish RFK Jr. all the best for running in the Democratic primary. If he's successful, it will be a very interesting to see how the party realigns itself, or whether or not they will try and find some other way to make sure that RFK Jr. is not the nominee, because they're going to do everything they can to promote Biden or whoever else it will be. The DNC has made it very clear there will be no debates. But the more they hold to that statement, it will once again, cause more suffering to the Democratic Party label, to which I can only sit back, eat the popcorn, and laugh.
Factors in the mix, it could get quite interesting.
It could. It very well could. Now, again, there's a lot of uncertainty in this, especially because voters, especially in Iowa and New Hampshire, will be able to vote for whoever they want, be it RFK Jr., and if Marianne Williamson is still around, then her. But again, the Biden campaign, they're not there. And the DNC has already acknowledged that they will not acknowledge those two states or their delegates. The party is crumbling in on itself to defend a senile old man that is not fit for the job. And RFK Jr. is already portraying himself, successfully, might I add, to voters and to the media, that he's capable of keeping a coherent sentence, that he's able to speak to people, and that he's able to get his message out there on various different social media platforms. On June 28th, News Nation is going to be hosting a town hall with RFK Jr. I wonder when he's going to get one for CNN or MSNBC or CBS or Fox News. He already had an outstanding event that was hosted by Elon Musk. And yes, he was even on the Joe Rogan show as well. People are seeing who RFK Jr. is and his message, and it's going to inspire voters to want something different. Is Joe Biden ever going to do that? Hey, Bernie, tell me about your good friend Joe. Can he do the job? Hey, Obama, Obama, how many phone calls can you make? How many phone calls can you make? Because people see that your friend Joe, he's not there. The Democratic Party is an embarrassment. Always has been, always will be. All the best to RFK Jr. The DNC is going to intensify every attempt to try and discredit his campaign. Never forget what happened in 2016 and 2020. Never forget in 2020 how the DNC wrongly smeared Tulsi Gabbard and her supporters. They're going to do all that and worse to RFK Jr. And if I was in RFK Jr.'s shoes, I would not support whoever the nominee is. I would fight back and catalog every incident of election fraud that's being taken place, because if the DNC did it in 2016 and 2020, they're going to do it in 2024. You don't owe the Democrats any vote. And not to mention, on top of that, folks, don't fall for the neoliberal propaganda because, oh no, we got to rally around Biden because he could stop Trump. Yeah, that doesn't work anymore. Nothing changed under Biden. It just got worse.